Okay, so here are we. Yom Kippur. Temidin UMusafin. Yom Tzom Kippurim Makriyim Musaf Kamo Musaf Rosh Hashanah. The Musaf Yom Kippur is like that of Rosh Hashanah. Par Ayil Wa'ayil Zehu Anikra Elam V'Shivak Vasim. One bull, one ram, and 7 lambs. And the ram on this day has a special name called El Ha'am. Well, I don't get it. Why isn't the ram on Rosh Hashanah called El Ha'am? Why isn't the one ram they offer on Shmini Atzeres? By the way, the Musaf of these 3 days is identical. Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and Shmini Atzeres, all the same. Par Ayil, 7 lambs, and a he-goat for a sin offering. And the Rambam also adds that it's eaten at nighttime. This normally the he-goat of a sin offering of any given moed is eaten by the Kohanim that day. It could be eaten by night also. The problem with eating this one by day is it's a fast day. The Kohanim are not allowed to eat, so they save it for breakfast in the evening. Okay, so there you have it. What's the chiddush also over here of the El Ha'am? The El Ha'am is that Chazal say that when the Avoda Yom Kippurim, which is independent of the Musaf, is described in Sefer Vayikra, Parshas Achremos, it mentions that the Kohen Gadol brings a bull, but that bull, it says, comes from his own money. Okay, so what does it say? The Kohen Gadol, in order to do the Avoda, has to get a bunch of specific animals that are not the Musaf. Okay, it's not the Musaf. It's the Avoda that's going to allow him to confess the people's sins. There's 3 confessions he's going to say. He's confess his own sins, and then for all the Kohanim, and then for all of Am Yisrael. And he's going to have, with that he-goat that takes the confession of all of Am Yisrael, has to have its twin. Okay, its twin, which is going to be a special sacrifice. So let me read you what they have there, or you could even open up in Avodas Yom Kippurim. The Rambam mentions this. He begins with what? He says, "So bezot yavon aron kodesh b'far ben bakar l'chatath v'ayol leolah." He brings a par ben bakar l'chatath, a bull, but that's a chatas, and that bull apparently comes from his own money. The bull we're describing here is a burnt offering, and it's a regular musaf, so it comes from public funds. And an ayol leolah, and a ram as a burnt offering. Kethoneth bad kodesh yobash mikla sevad yobasaro. Here's what you should wear. Avdi bad yachtor v'chatz bar yisrael v'isham u'miyeta daf ben Israel, from the children of Israel yikach shnei sirim izim l'chatav v'ayol echad leolah. And from the children of Israel, he should take 2 he-goats, right, l'chatav, but not like the usual chatas. These 2 goats are a chatas, the one they're going to have with the lotteries, and v'ayol echad leolah, and a ram as a burnt offering. So the sages say that there's one overlap. One of these rams I just mentioned, ayol echad leolah, that comes from the people. It came from the people. That's this ram that's part of the musaf. Okay, there's one overlap. Question is, how did Chazal know that? Tradition, also textual clues. There's a lot to be argued there. The Karaites felt otherwise. They said there's basically, more Elim. The ones in Vayikra are not the ones in Bamidbar. So they called it El Ham. I just wrote the note here. Unlike the rest of the Musaf animals, this one is actually mentioned also in Achremos. Okay, and you look in your Archibald Machzer, they also point this out in that nice chart right before Shacharis. Why they put that chart before Shacharis, I don't know. That chart's place belongs more aptly before Musaf, or after the Torah reading. You ever wonder that? I don't know, but then again, I haven't seen an Archibald Machzer printed in the last 20-something years. My Archibald Machzer was printed more than 30 years ago. So maybe they've updated things since then. Okay, let's see. And of course, there's the other 2 sirim, not the regular moed sir chatos. And that sir chatos, its blood is sprinkled on the broches and within the kodesh kodashim and on the golden altar, mixed with the blood of the bull, and that is burnt. Okay? It's not offered on the mizbeach. Its flesh is not eaten after the holiday by the kohanim. It's burnt. And it's the one. Its counterpart is the scapegoat, the one that's sent to Azazel. That's what they call it. Okay. There's a scapegoat or a sacrificial lamb. B'yom tov harishon shel Chag HaSukkot, makrivin Musaf hayom. On the first yontif, that means day 1 of the Tabernacles festival, Here is the Musaf that we bring. Shlosha asar parim, 13 bulls. Ushne elim, 2 rams. V'arba asar kvasim, and 14 lambs. Kulano loth, all burnt offerings. How many total animals is that? 29. With sa'ir chataf necheleth. And once again, a he-goat as a sin offering, which is eaten by the Kohanim. B'choyin b'chol yom v'yom yishivati me'echag, makrivin shnei elim v'arba asar kvasim u'sir chataf. And so too, the subsequent days, all the days of these 7 days of the festival, we bring 2 rams, 14 lambs, and the he-goat as a sin offering. This 14 lambs is exceptional. Why? Until now, every day we had a Musaf that wasn't Shabbos, it's been 7 lambs. Suddenly on Sukkot, it's double the lambs. They're asking us what do the numbers mean. So for the Rambam, he says in more Nevuchim, that's just the way it is. But others are more mystically inclined or found Ramazim. They say, obviously, there's something going on here. We found the first time in the Torah, what is it? There's a plural. I forget the word. It's right in the beginning, Bereshis, right in the first chapter. Taninim. Taninim is written without a yud. The prefix, the suffix pluralization, the im part. Why is there no yud there? It's pronounced taninim. It means tanins, the plural of the tanin, whatever that is. Why is the yud missing? So you could have all sorts of etymological reasons, perhaps girsas, whatever it might be. But the fact that ultimately Moshe Rabbeinu left out the yud means that there's a clue here. Okay? The fact that a yud that's supposed to be there is not there, and all throughout the Torah usually it is there, means that there's some sort of drasha, some sort of illusion is here. Okay, so this number for many is a sign that there's something special going on. Because I already said the 70 bulls. If you count all the bulls that are offered, he didn't mention what you bring on the second day. He just said the subsequent days, same amount of rams, same amount of lambs, and the same goat. But what about the bulls? Aval haparim pochatin echad echad b'chol yom. We reduce the bulls by 1. So on the second day, it's going to be 12. And if you do 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, what do you get? Total? 70. Okay? 13 plus 7, and 8 plus 12, right? And 9 plus 11 is 60, plus another 10 in the middle, 70 rams. What is 70? 70 is a magic number, a reoccurring number. So Chazal said, of all the 70s, you could have said 70 members of Sanhedrin, right? Or 70 years of a regular man's life, like David HaMelech. 70 could have been something or other. 70 is 10 cycles times 10, right? But instead, Chazal said, the dafka has to do with the nations. Why does it have to do with the nations? What does it have to do with anything? So the answer is because the sacrifices are offered on behalf of people. So when you offer sacrifices on someone's behalf, and it adds up to 70 people, and Sukkot is the time when all the nations are supposed to gather in front of God also. A few times in the Navi it says, so it must be, this is the sacrifices for the nations. It's on their behalf. There you go. Aval, ha-parim pochatin, bashim akrim shneim asar parim, uvash lishi achad asar parim. Ad shi motzei korban yom shvi, parim shiva elim shenayim, kivasim arba asar. The Rambam started almost counting like the pasuk itself. Pasuk, parim shiva elim shenayim, kivasim arba asar, hakol oloth, us'ir chatath. Okay, or wissa'ir chatath. Is it a smichut? Is it seir chatath or with sa'ir kama chatath? What do you have in your edition? So the end of the second halacha, I found it interesting because in Korain they read it us'ir chatath, like the Torah says, a seir that's a chatath. But Machon Mamre has usa'ir kama chatath, so it's the kamatz. Okay, and a seir, which will be a chatath. It means the same thing. The Yom Shmini Atzeres Makrivim Musaf Hayom. Now Shmini Atzeres go back to a regular Musaf like on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Par v'ayil with shiva kfasim. A bull, a ram, 7 lambs, kulan oloth, all are burnt offerings. Usir chatath. What do you have? Usir kama chatath I have here. Uzem Musaf b'fnei atzmo. And this is a Musaf unto itself. What does the Rambam mean when he says it's a Musaf unto itself? Well, the Rambam is getting at 2 things, 2 nafkaminos, minyan and mitzvos. The Rambam actually counts the mitzvahs and then writes a whole book. And here's why I count the mitzvahs. Here are my rules for counting mitzvahs. He took this very seriously. And he disagreed with Gaonim. He disagreed with his own Rebbeim about how to count the mitzvahs. So he has long essays there, how to count mitzvahs. Why do I count this? Tzitzis and tefillin. How do you count the mitzvahs exactly? So the Rambam said that there's one mitzvah to bring a Musaf on Sukkot, and that mitzvah applies all 7 days. Not the mitzvah of the first day and the mitzvah of the second day. There's a mitzvah of the first day and all the subsequent days. But Shmini Atzeres Musaf is its own mitzvah. Nafkamina l'mina mitzvahs. And by the way, even Sefer Mitzvahs, when the Rambam is done describing how he counts the mitzvahs, every now and then he gets to a controversial mitzvah, and he says, and why do I count this as two separate mitzvahs? Or why do I count this as only one mitzvah against, hint, the Gaonim, I know you're talking about, or against the Rif, whoever it might be. And he gives long explanations. By the way, explanations that you can still argue with. And even in the Mishneh Torah, less so, but still, he mentions, and these are two separate mitzvahs. So nafkamina is the Shmini Atzeres mitzvah to bring a Musaf is independent of the mitzvah to bring Musaf on all the other days. Means it counts as two different mitzvahs. Thou shalt bring sacrifice on Sukkot. Thou shalt bring sacrifice on Shmini Atzeres. For the Rambam, it's a big deal. How you count? The big 613. Okay? For him, it was a big deal. The Vilna Gaon didn't feel so much. Okay? Next. The nafkamina L'chalukas hamishmaros. Ron's going to get into this Kohanic privilege. The Kohanim are all on duty on the holidays, so they're going to have to divide up among the 24 mishmaros all the sacrifices of Sukkot across 7 days in an equitable manner. But the division that they're going to do across Sukkot doesn't count Shmini Atzeres as one thing. Shmini Atzeres are going to go back to everybody's square one. Whatever happened, whatever dividing happened on Shmini Atzeres, whoever might have gained on certain days throughout Chol Moed, doesn't count anymore. Shmini Atzeres is a brand new holiday for this purpose. Okay, what happened yesterday in the Musaf or whatever one Kohen group is owed doesn't matter. Okay, it's a new holiday, and Chazal said that. So Chazal, it's one of those brilliant Gemaras there where they're basically saying if you were not, they're less reporting what Chazal said should be the takana. Okay, they're actually saying if you are astute at reading Psukim very carefully, you realize that Shmini Atzeres has that Pezer Keshev thing. Okay, it is a separate holiday for 6 nafkaminas. Okay, so that's the nafkamina. That's why the Rambam said it's a musaf b'fnei atzmo. Kol shivatim yachag b'naschim ethamayim al gabei hamizbeach v'devarze alacha Moshe misinai. Normally, because the Rambam has to tell you it's a mitzvah of the Torah. Here it says Lacha Moshe misinai. There's no verse in the Bible. Thou shalt pour thine water before me, or upon mine altar, right? Which is why this usually took a bashing from the usual heretical sects in temple times. They didn't believe in it, right? So, the im nisuch hagayin shel tamid shachar hayam nasecha mayim levado. And at the time when they would offer the libation of the tamid shel shachar, not the musaf, that's when they would do this water thing. You could maybe at Musaf, or maybe at the Tamid Shal Ben Arbayim. But the Chazal knew it should be in the morning. My guess is that Zrizah Makdim Mitzvah. So if you're going to do it, just do it already. And they're already doing the wine. So it says they pour it simultaneously. But it's levado, doesn't mean that it wasn't done at the time of the wine. It just said it's done at the same time. It means poured into a different hole. Now, I mentioned this. I learned this from Dr. England. Well, we should have known this. It used to be in the ancient world, they had different forms of sacrifice. One form of sacrifice was putting something into the ground. Yes, it's true, idolaters used to build altars or monuments, like a matzeva-like thing, just a single stone, or just build a pyre and burn something, right? But sometimes they put something into the ground. There were sacrificial cults that did that. And by the way, this is an example of this. Where did they put the wine libations? Where did they go? Did they even pour them into the altar? It basically goes a tube into the ground. Okay, libations go directly into the ground. Oil you could burn on the fire, but we don't want to pour wine on like the burning pile of wood. If I even put out the fire, okay, so that's something they did. So shows that even this form of sacrifice has its remnants here, especially if you're a Rambamist. The Rambam says sacrifice because that's what people do when they worship, right? So it makes sense that some forms of sacrifice also involve putting something into the ground. Also, read the next halach and you realize something's missing. Okay? Let's say he did mix them. He poured the water into the wine, or the wine into the water. Why? Well, people in the olden days used to mix water and wine all the time. That was a dilution, right? And then they're poured from one bottle, let's say, one ceremonial flask or pitcher into the hole on the top of his Mizbeach, that thing that looked like a sink, Yatzah, he satisfied his obligation. I think it should say Yatza'u, because it's not the Kohen who's discharging obligations, it's Kol Am Yisrael. If he did the nisucha mayim even before the zevach, that's the tamid. If he did it at night, he's yotzei. No specific time, because the Torah didn't decree this. Uv karen dromith ma'aravith hayam minasech. By the way, something that we mentioned this week. Even the Rambam mentions that you have to finish mincha by shkia, right? So that's because you have to finish the sacrificial services by shkia in the temple. So too ne'ilah. Remember what we saw in Yom Kippur? It's not that you have to get duchening in before sundown on Yom Kippur. You want to finish the Shmon Esrei Chazaras shots of ne'ilah before sundown or by sundown. The way you do during Be'er Shpashos. The Yom Kippur's not over. That's when you say the Tachanunim. You can continue saying, but whatever, the Slichus, but Avinu Malkeinu, whatever it might be. But you do not consider with the actual prayer, because Ne'ilah is supposed to end at Shkia, or before Shkia. Unlike the Minhag in America, for example, where most places they're still saying the Chazaras Hashatz. They're saying Chazaras Hashatz even after the sun sets at the end of Yom Kippur. Okay, let's continue with this. Well,
even if one says that, let's say Mincha, you have to start it before Shkia.
Yeah.
That means you have to start Chazaras shots before Shkia.
Yeah.
Because then you would be able to
Yeah. Means the whole prayer, even Tfilas Tzibur has to finish by Shkia. Now, obviously, there's Achronim who gave Heterim all for the various things. Even 13 and a half minutes, even being a Shmashos, they allow you to continue. I think if really that's not what the Vilna Gaon and the Rambam would say, because in the Beis HaMikdash they would just stop everything with the Shkia. It's all puzzle already. Another issue was, well, yeah, 18 minutes. The other Ben Hashmash's opinion. There's another issue that came up. They let's say they take a long time davening on Shabbos. The Kriyas Shema and brachos are drawn out. Let's say Tzeis is 5:20 p.m. Right? So Shabbos we start davening early. Let's say they're going to say Baruch Hu at 5:10. So if you're a real stickler, you know that you can't really say, like Mishneh Berurah says, you can't really start saying Kriyas Shema now with the brachos. It's like a bracha of Atal because it's early. However, there is room to say the status, the standard of Bishoch Becha is Tzeis, right? But that's for the Kriyas Shema. For the two brachas that precede it, they might not have that requirement. So that means you could even start Baruch Hu 3 minutes before actual Tzeis and say Baruch Hu and the first two brachas musically or whatever. And then when you get to the actual first verse of Shema, now it's Tzeis. There is room for that. Nope. Because sometimes it is. If you're already talking about what is it, the only going style. There's Shkia, and you saw the sunset, and you have 13 and a half minutes in Nisan until Tzeis or whatever it might be. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be so mocked, but that's the point. It's not that it's negligible. It's that don't worry about if you started Baruch Hu a little bit early. I don't know if it's negligible though. You should try to say if you were going to say like, well, I started Kriyas Shema 10 minutes after sundown. You shouldn't have done that. So it's a din d'oraisa. You have to err on the side of caution to make sure you definitely said after Tzeis. But the brachas, you don't have to be definite. Make sense? Yeah. Well.
The Yerushalmi starts with Sefek Kriyas
Yeah.
Finish Roshot,
Yeah.
and it says that you repeat it anyway,
Yeah.
even if it's like
Yeah.
almost.
Because the Doraisa, they want you to definitely have said it at night. That is an interesting sugya by the way. Maybe they should make that what's required learning. A lot of guys get introduced to Gemara to learning the Bavli brachos, right? They don't do Yerushalmi brachos. They never get around to it. And Tosfos is mentioning it all over the place. Like in Yerushalmi, it says, why don't you just open up Yerushalmi? What? Okay, yeah, you did that, but they didn't do that in Yeshiva. Yeah, we never opened up Yerushalmi. Like, you could use it as a reference, but there was no Shir Yerushalmi. Next, ready to do this. Karen Jeromith Maravitha Menasech Lemala Mechatzia Mizbeach. it was in the southwest corner. That means if the person was, the coin goes up the altar, so it's on his left side. That's where you would put the libation. The Malamei Chatziyah Mizbeach, top half. The Akol Yorei Lashitin Kamosha B'Yarno. It all goes down into the depths. Okay? The dugout areas under the Mizbeach. Did they have Shitin in Shilo? You could go there. You could stomp around there. It seems that that's pretty much the ground. They didn't dig Shitin in Shilo. Okay? So, for some reason, the Beis HaMikdash was built at, there's a lot underneath it. They hollowed out the Temple Mount before they even built the Beis HaMikdash. And they made Shitin. They made passages, yeah. Yeah. Shilo, nothing was hollowed out, yeah. But they made them make a sheath or something, maybe something. Well, no, they didn't have. Shilo, look, you could go there. Yeah. Yeah, they made that. It's not natural. They messed with the topography of the Har Bayis many times, but Shilo, you could still go there to the Azara. It's pretty much there, and there's nothing underneath. It's just the ground. They didn't do much changing there. They didn't dig it out. They weren't worried. Apparently, they were not worried about kever hatahom in Shiloh times. As a matter of fact, they also, the same that we pointed out, the area of where the Mikdash was in Shiloh, wasn't in the valley, and it wasn't on. It was like along the slope. It was just like a flat area, halfway down. Because there's no din that the Beis HaMikdash should be a high point. It was only when they got to Givon, not even in Nov. They called it the Bama Gedolah because they put it at a Bama. The Chiddush of the Mishkan in Nov in Givon was that it was actually in a place that was higher than the surrounding areas, a relative maximum point if we're doing our pre-calculus, right? No, okay, that's a reference for there. Okay, Ketzad Yosim. What do they do? So Chitcha Zahav Mechazeket or Machzeket. What do you got? Should be Machzeket, right? Or Machazeket, not Mechazeket. Yeah. You have a Chataf Patach under the Chet. Shlosheth Lugim. So it was a flask, a golden flask that holds about three loaves. What is 3 loaves? That's about a liter. So each lobe, lowest estimate, 300 ml. That's the one Makbili goes with. The Korean ones, based on Rav Chaim Noah, says goes with 3.45 liter. So 3 times that amount. And that's they would fill it up at the Shiloach. Higiu l'Sharamayim. They came to the gate of the Temple Mount called Sharamayim. Taku v'ariu v'taku. They would sound the tekiah and then a trua and then a tekiah. Alala kavesh. The Kohen would go up the ramp. Ufanal l'smolo v'notena mayim min atzluchith. B'tocha sefel. So you have safal or sefel? I have sefel. Okay? Sefel. Shayasham. And it was in this bowl-like thing with the tube going down. That was at the top of the Mizbeach. What part did the Rambam leave out? What essential part of this that you might remember from a kid? It says they draw the water from the Shiloach and they bring it up to Har Bayis and they sound the shofar and then they go up on the Kevesh. So this is happening in the morning. What part did they leave out? Well, no, he's talking specifically about Nisuch HaMayim. They get the water and they bring it to the Beis HaMikdash and they, no, the Simchat Beit HaShoeva, I thought, right? Beit HaShoeva. Simchat Beit HaShoeva was the night of Sukkot when they're drawing the water. Isn't that the case? What? No. No, they do ask when they do things against the Sukkot, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm trying to say the whole Simchat Beit HaShoeva ritual is missing. Didn't they do that every night when they drew the water? Isn't that what it is? Well, what does Simchat Beit HaShoeva mean? Yeah, that's normally what it means, the show of Mayim, yeah. So the answer is, the way the Rambam understands it, that the Simchat Beit HaShoeva was like in Yerushalmi. It's not literally drawing water, it's drawing inspiration, prophetic inspiration. And the Rambam includes Simchat Beit HaShoeva in the halachas that was the best, happiest time it was on Sukkot. But he connects it to Simchas Chag and the Lulav and Esrog. And it wasn't every single night. If it was connected to the water drawing, you'd have to do it the first night of Yontif. But the Rambam says specifically, like in the Mishneh, the nights of Yontif and Shabbos, they didn't have Simchas Beit HaShoeva, even though the next morning there would be this Korban Nisuch HaMayim. I'll give you an example. Like what happened this year. Sukkot started on a Tuesday. So there was no Simchas Beit HaShoeva, the Beis Hamikdash, at least Monday night, the first night of Yom Tiv, it was quiet in the Beis Hamikdash, no partying. But the next morning they would do Nisuch HaMayim. And come Chol Moed, Shabbos Chol Moed, Leil Shabbos Chol Moed, no Simchas Beit HaShoeva, no juggling of torches, okay? None of that. It's Leil Shabbos. You can't get down on Shabbos and Yom Tiv. You're not supposed to. But they would have the water drawing. They have the libation of the water in the morning. So the Simchas Beit HaShoeva, the way the Rambam and others understand it, is not necessarily connected to the water of the Nisuch HaMayim. It was something else entirely, about celebrating before God 7 days. The same pasuk that they have the drasha, why you take a lulav 7 days in the Beis Hamikdash, you even celebrate Hashem 7 days without a lulav, and even at night. All night long they would celebrate. That was like the highest form of celebration, and that's where you get the inspiration. What else does this teach us? This also teaches us that, wait a minute, the common minhag of Simchas Torah, where it's Dafka Leil Yontif, and in Eretz Yisrael it's even Leil Shabbos, where everybody's all Simchas Beit HaShoeva, is actually forbidden. There's still purists out there who do not go along with what's done in most places on Simchas Torah. They'd say that was forbidden. Because Al said you're not allowed to do those types of things on Shabbos or on Yontif, right? And they have the Tosfos. They say no, now it's okay. We don't fix Klei Shir. But every now and then you meet a Litvak who's a stickler, so he doesn't do that. He will not join a Karbach minyan on Leil Shabbos. Not only that, what does he do on Simchas Torah then? Even the Vilna Gaon, didn't the Vilna Gaon get down on Simchas Torah? And the answer is not like you do. Okay. And Rav Tzuriel's answer was the Vilna Gaon only did it in Chutz La'aretz on Yontif Sheni, but he wouldn't have done it on Yontif Vadai, Yontif Rishon, when it's not when it's an actual D'oraisa. So all these add up. You know, that was Rav Tzuriel's teretz. Very interesting one. He wrote about this. I think I showed it to you guys. Okay. So, Rav Tzuriel, we mentioned him twice tonight. Good. Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. That means when you mention them, it's a brocha. So there's no Simchas Beit HaShoeva mentioned here because according to the Rambam, it's not really connected. Yeah, they're both on Sukkot, but the water drawing of Simchas Beit HaShoeva is not for the purposes of Nisuch HaMayim. Okay, it's for drawing inspiration. Okay, good. Let's see. One last halacha, and then we'll I guess open it to questions. So it says here, Panalis Molo, the Kohen who went up the ramp turns to his left, and he pours it into there. Ushnei sifalim shel kesef hayusham. 2 bowl-like structures made of silver were there. Okay, Ma'aravi hayabu mayim. The one that was more to the west was for water. Mizrachi, the one on the right side toward the east, was for wine. Umenu kavin hayu, and they had a hole in the bottom, like a sink. Kimin shnei chotmim dakim, like 2 nostrils. Okay? See, one over here. If you're looking at the altar from the bird's eye view, you'd see that there's 2 holes, 2 of these receptacles with holes. Mishel mayim haya nekev shelo dak mishel yain. The hole for the one that was to receive the water was smaller than that for the wine. Why? Wine pours slower. Yes, viscosity. Same volumes. The Kohen's pouring them. You know, how is it going to measure? Like, decide. It's really hard. You have to be really skilled in order to pour them so that they would go into the holes and end at the exact same time. So Chazal cheated. What did they do? They made it that the water hole was smaller, so that would slow down the water going down to catch it up to the wine. Very interesting. I don't know how they calculated that, but they did it. You know. They wanted it lichatchila to be at the same time, separate but at the same time. Look, this cup held chocolate milk earlier today. You can see that the chocolate milk rolls down the sides and around the cup slower than, let's say, a similar cup holding just regular water. Right? Did Chazal have chocolate milk? No, of course they didn't. They didn't have chocolate. Of course not. Yeah.
If they had chocolate, they would have made a special brocha.
Yeah, my taina is Chazal had coffee. They would have realized that the coffee is so important for human beings. They would have definitely given it some sort of like chashivas, and chocolate also because everybody loves chocolate. But yeah, what?
Isn't coffee has
I really, the machluk is there. Hey, it's whatever it might be. Chocolate also big discussion. Okay, is the actual cocoa beans ha'etz or adama, and then when you process it into chocolate, there are those. I think the rabbi argued chocolate objectively is ha'etz. It's like a fruit. Secondly, when you process it into actual chocolate, the stuff that we eat, the Hershey stuff, so it still maintains its brocha of ha'etz. That's a very big dispute, as you know. Yeah. Well, or Adama or whatever it is, it maintains its brocha. It's not a shahakal. That's the point. So whichever one it might be, I say shahakal because we don't have such refined chocolate. There's so many additives and it's so highly processed, and it's delicious, but it's a shahakal. So that's how I feel. But yeah.
7% dark chocolate. Just cocoa powder, cocoa butter.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff too. More expensive, maybe. My wife likes the 80% stuff, but what I feel is that with regards to all these obscure brachas, Chazal gave general guidelines. They did not see chocolate and coffee and all these other things, so they would have told you the rule. But I don't think you'd even try to decently extrapolate. You give a good argument why it should be one way, but someone else gives you a good argument the other way. And the answer is Chazal never legislated this, so it doesn't really matter. They're both legitimate, So there you go.
From Salaf.
Yeah. Yeah, he also said that the Chazon Ish agreed that he felt like the Chazon Ish's opinion, right?
Or chocolate.
He did? I don't know. Okay, now I have to look this up. I have to listen again. I should have listened better the first time. My point is, I'm not convinced by any of these new arguments. Also, remember, there's a guy in Yeshiva called the granola bars, suffix bars. Okay? Koses chitim. The Rambam Paskins, koses chitim is hadama, and koses barley is even worse. No one is koses barley. Animals eat raw barley, right? So the granola bars, what are those? So you can make a lot of different arguments. So I heard someone say, don't even eat granola bars because of the suffix. Chazal didn't want you to not eat a decent food because you don't want bracha to say on it. One of these arguments is going to win. They're both very good arguments. Okay, I've seen 3 arguments for granola bars, right? Same with the chocolate and the coffee.
3 arguments for granola.
Yeah, hadama, mizonos, or shahakal. Okay, hadama because it's like koses chitim. It's not processed. It's like raw wheat. Yeah, but it's kind of toasted, so maybe it's mizonos, klayos, parched wheat. What's the bracha on parched wheat? So it should be like that. Some say it's processed into a bar, so now it's like shahakal. I don't like that argument. I like that one the least.
I always physically see the grains.
Say hadama. Yeah. Some say sometimes they grind up the granola bar. There are actual pieces of oat still in there, but a lot of it is ground up. It's not just a clump of oats.
A lot of granola bars, you can see the grains, or if it's granola bars, they're made of full peanuts.
Yeah, some of them are chunkier than others, and some are less. So it's a real, and it's also, is it this brand or that brand of granola bar, right? Is it Nature Valley, or is it, was it the Quaker Oats chewy ones? Okay, different halachas. So you can't just say granola bar is this bracha, because weren't there to say it, and there's arguments both ways. So I didn't feel that, don't eat it. I didn't feel that one bracha definitely wins, because weren't here. So whichever argument you make for there fits into their pattern. So that's it. We'll close with the blessing or prayer that we live to see the destruction of Israel's enemies. We're just hoping now, may the Ayatollah suffer the same fate of Haman, God willing, soon. And may all of his minions also suffer similar fates. And may we see rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. Shabbat Shalom, we need Tzachon.